Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, a lot to talk about today. However, what many people are discussing, obviously, is a new directive from the Trump administration. This is through the State Department, so this is more Marco Rubio than anybody else, but clearly this is part of the Trump administration's efforts to not just crack down on illegal immigration, but now to reform and start to crack down and toughen up standards for legal immigration. And so please understand that what we're talking about now is about legal immigrants. And so, according now to a new directive issued through the Trump State Department, listen now to this. Embassies, consulates, officers around the world have now been told that they must start to take into account, in particular, health criteria of people who want to come to the United States on a visa. Now, this could be for just a travel visa. You come in to whatever, vacation for a week or two or whatever it may be, or as a student visa, or on a work visa, or, yes, if you want to get a green card, permanent residency in the United States. And in particular, what they are now being instructed is that you must look into two things. Number one, do they financially have the means to be able to, take care of themselves, take care of their families, not be what used to be called a public charge? In other words, they're not going to be on the government dole. They are able to have a job, pay for themselves, pay for their family, not be on welfare, not be on public housing, not take SNAP or food stamps. In other words, don't take any government benefits. To me, that's just common sense. That's how it used to be in this country. I'm supporting this 1,000%. But then they also add a second criteria, which is you can also look into health. And if a person has cardiovascular disease, regenerative disease, cancer, obesity, diabetes, they're saying that now these case officers, people in consulates and embassies, could look at this and say, what is the financial impact on taxpayers in the United States? If someone is coming in with cancer, well, do they have the means to pay for their treatment when they come to America? Can they sustain themselves? Say they gonna, come to America, say they want a green card. Well, if they're 50 years old and life expectancy now is about 75 and they have cancer, are they multimillionaires? Say if they come from Saudi Arabia or whatever country, can they then provide for themselves and take care of their cancer treatment? Say they have mental health issues, suffer from chronic depression, bipolar disorder, whatever it may be. Are they able to take care financially? Are they able to take care of their mental health issues, or will they become a burden on taxpayers, either by requiring or needing public cash assistance? That's exactly what that's the terminology in this new guidance, or governmental institutionalization, meaning they're going to have to be on Medicaid. They're going to have to be on whatever, mass health. They're going to have to be on Obamacare. In other words, can they pay for themselves if they're sick? And if they can't pay for themselves, niet. No, verboten. It is forbidden. Do not allow these people to come in because you don't want them to be a burden, a quote unquote public charge, a burden on the taxpayer, a burden on our immigration system. Now, the most controversial of all is the guidance about obesity, fatness, people being too fat, and those who suffer from diabetes. Part of the guidance is crystal clear, saying that they now want case officers, embassies, consulates, whatever, to now look at people who are overweight. These are immigrants now, potential immigrants, people who are going to get a visa to visit our country or stay in our country. And what they're saying is, in plain English, we don't want fat people and obese people. And the reason why is they say because generally obese people will have heart issues, will have blood pressure issues. Many will be suffering from diabetes. And so can they afford to pay for their own insulin? If they can afford to pay for their own insulin, fine, we'll let them come in. But if they can't pay for their own insulin, why should the taxpayers pay for their insulin? Just to give you as an example, or pay for them to get heart treatment or a heart operation. So what they are now saying is that they're going to use the criteria that basically they don't want fatsos coming into the United States. And especially if you have type 2 diabetes, they really don't want you. Now, they're not saying automatically if you're 450 pounds, they're not going to admit you to come into America. Or if you have type 2 diabetes, they won't let you come into America. If you show that you can pay for your insulin, they'll let you in. If you get a medical exam and they say, yes, this person maybe is overweight, but right now there are no health issues whatsoever, and this person has the means, should they develop serious health issues, to pay for themselves, take care of themselves, they'll let you in. So it's not a blanket policy of no obese people. But what they're saying is they're trying to discourage fat people, obese people, people with overweight people from being admitted into the country as immigrants on visas. And it is on a case-by-case basis. But if a case officer looks at someone and says, 350, 400 pounds, already on type 2 diabetes, already on insulin, high blood pressure, income level is not going to be that high when they come in. You know what? This person's likely going to be a ward of the state. No, this person's going to have chronic health issues, and most likely the U.S. taxpayer is going to have to pick up the tab. And as the guidance says, treatment often costs hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money on the taxpayer's dime. So they now have the discretion to say, and yet, no, we're not going to give you the visa. You're not allowed to come in. Now, as you know, liberals, civil rights groups, the ACLU, their heads are exploding. They're going bonkers. They say this is discrimination against the obese, against fat people, against sick people, against people with diabetes, against people with cancer, against people with mental health issues. And they're saying that people should be allowed to come in regardless of their weight, regardless of their health, regardless of their mental health. Now, let me just say this right away. Generally, I am in favor. There's no question. We don't want to be, a nursing home for the entire world. We're not the Salvation Army. We're not the Red Cross for the entire world. Why should we be importing people, say, who are schizophrenic, who are severely bipolar, who suffer from severe chronic depression, and then we're left having to take care of them? Or, as more often happens, people who have serious heart issues. By the way, the number one killer in the world is cardiovascular disease. According to our State Department, according to the World Health Organization, 18 million people die every single year from, strokes, heart attacks, heart failure. Many of them would love to come into the United States to get the best treatment in the world. So heart disease is a very serious problem. 1 out of every 10 people in the world suffers from diabetes. I suffer from diabetes. As you know, I have type 2 diabetes. Here's my only concern with this. By these standards today, if we rolled back the clock 25 years ago, okay, when the Kuhner man came in on a work visa and then eventually got a green card and, of course, eventually became a naturalized American citizen, I don't think they would allow me. I think they'd look at me and say, well, you're about 40 pounds overweight. That's not good. High blood pressure. Yeah, check. High cholesterol. Yeah, check. Type 2 diabetes. I didn't have it then, but I was in the early stages. Looks like type 2 diabetic any year now. Check. Sorry, Jeff. I know you want to come. I know you have a lot of things to contribute, but you're just too fat. No, you're a fatso, and the answer is no. 617-266-6868 is the number. 619 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, so I want to ask all of you, what do you make of these new guidelines, new criteria now that the Trump administration is going to be applying to? These are legal immigrants. Now, these are for immigrant visas. So it could be just literally, a travel visa to come for a couple of weeks, go to, I don't know, Florida or Disneyland, or, I don't know, come here to Massachusetts, say in the summer, to go to Cape Cod or whatever it may be. That, or for student visas, work visas, also green cards to apply for permanent residency. And so you don't just have to show that you're financially able to sustain yourself, especially if you're applying to come here on a work visa or a green card, a permanent residency. They want to make sure if you're going to be living in this country for a sustained period of time, that you're not just going to be a ward of the state. You're going to be living on welfare. That, to me, it's a no-brainer. What they're also now saying is that health criteria is going to be almost as important as the financial criteria. They don't want people coming in who are sick, who have cancer, who have serious heart disease, cardiovascular disease, other kinds of diseases as well. People who are coming in maybe with mental health issues, schizophrenia, bipolar, you name it, serious depression, these kinds of issues, but obesity. They say that is now a major consideration. They don't want fat people coming in. Now you're going to say, Jeff, what's fat? Right? What's the definition of fat? They're saying someone that is really overweight, that because of their weight, they suffer from type 2 diabetes, have high blood pressure, probably early stages of heart disease, but we're talking, people who are really, really overweight. I'm not talking about somebody with a love handle. Or whatever. They could lose 10 pounds or whatever. No, we're not talking that. We're talking about people, who are fat. I mean, another way to put it, they're obese, they're big. They say that what's happening is many of them are coming in, they have chronic health issues because of their obesity. And then we, the American taxpayer, have to pay for their insulin. We have to pay for eventually their their heart treatment or their heart medication or their heart operations, that this is becoming massively expensive. And unless they can show that they have the financial means to pay for, their insulin, or if they, need a heart operation or whatever, then the answer should be no. We don't want sick, overweight people, according to the Trump administration, coming into the United States. Agree, disagree. Generally, I'm not an inhumane man, but generally, I think we have way too many. I'm talking now legal, never mind illegal immigration, legal immigration, where they abuse our generosity, where they come on a travel visa and then head straight to they come in, they claim for a week or 2 or 3 weeks vacation, and it happens all the time. They go to one of our hospitals and claim, and get taken care of. They come in and say they have heart issues, they're going to have a heart attack, they're about to have a heart attack, and boom, they have to be taken care of. So this is costing us a fortune. And I don't think that we should be paying for foreigners is insulin. I don't think we should be paying for their heart operations. I don't think we should be paying for their mental health treatment. And then Charles in Florida made a very good point. Jeff, what about people who come in, women pregnant? 7, 8 months or whatever. Many of them come in, claim they're just here to be on vacation, but they're really here. It's called birth tourism. They're here to just have the baby in the United States. The baby is then an anchor baby, and then the baby gets automatic American citizenship. That should also be looked at. I completely agree, Charles. I think, no, again, it's a judgment call. You look at us, you look at a couple, you look at someone, it's on an individual case-by-case basis, but you say, no, I think they're here. They're not here to really see Disney World. They're not really here to go to the Grand Canyon. No, they're here to come and have an anchor baby. No, you're not. No travel visa. Sorry. No. We're not going to let you in. Or no student visa. Absolutely not. No. Now, the left is already complaining. The Democrats are already complaining. And many rhino Chamber of Commerce, open borders Republicans, globalist Republicans, are already complaining that this new criteria, especially on health and obesity, that this is going to lead to, quote unquote, too many refusals. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying our immigration system is already overburdened. It's already rife with fraud and abuse. And we're already taking in people from all over the world. And they're already straining our healthcare system. So I'm all for toughening the criteria across the board. Look, I can just tell you this. When I came to the United States, I already had a job waiting for me. I applied for the job from Canada, and I had to show that not just that I was the most qualified, but that they were Americans who didn't have all of the specific sets, the criteria that they were looking for. I spoke multiple languages. I had several expertise in different areas of the world. I don't want to give you my whole resume, but that's how I got the job. Now, I also had to go through a background check. I also had to go through a criminal background check. They also gave me a medical exam, but it was a broad medical exam. It was, do you have a contagious disease? Do you have tuberculosis or something like that? It wasn't, is the Kuhner man overweight, which I was? Is the Kuhner man on high blood pressure medication, which I was? Is the Kuhner man high cholesterol, which I was? But it was a general medical exam, and they did a drug test. By the way, all of which I agreed with. So now they're going to raise the criteria, raise the standards. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I just want to read to you one message and one text, and I'm going to go right to the phone lines. 617-266-6868 is the number. This is from 781. Jeff, the criteria that you mentioned in your opening monologue is nothing new. When I got married in 1979 to an Eastern European woman and was arranging her immigration here to the United States, I had to officially, quote unquote, sponsor her, which required me to be financially responsible for her. In other words, she would not be eligible to receive welfare or other social benefits. Now, that was not too long ago. When on earth did that change, and who changed it? That's not the standards today. I hate to tell you this, 781. Those standards now, it eroded slowly. They were slowly undermined, eroded, lowered, both Republican and Democrat administrations, because they were desperate or determined to bring in as many, not just illegal immigrants, but legal immigrants, and to open up our borders. And so they want to make it easier and easier and easier. No, you can get a green card. You can even get a work visa in the United States, even if you're on, say, SNAP, or if you're applying for public housing vouchers, or whatever, or I mentioned food stamps already, or if take your pick, whatever you want, say heating assistance in the wintertime or whatever, you can be on one. You can't be on all of them. I'm not kidding. That's the new criteria. So you can be on WIC. That's fine. You can be on SNAP. That's fine. You can be on public housing. That's fine. You can even take EBT. That's fine. But you can't take 4 or 5. You can't take, a lot of them. They will allow you 1, maybe 2. And they'll still allow you to get a work visa or to get a student visa or to get a green card. So this idea of financial economic self-reliance, those days are gone. Now, Trump is trying to bring it back. And that's why they're toughening up the criteria. And that's why, in general, I support it not 100, but 1,000%. The controversy, the real quote-unquote, if I'm putting this in air quotes, controversy is the line on obesity, people who are overweight, people who are quote-unquote too fat, that they want to start turning those away as well because they say it's leading to many health issues when they arrive, and it's just too much of a burden and a drain on our already overburdened healthcare and welfare system. And that's why I'd love to get your take. Should weight, in other words, being overweight, being obese, should that be a major factor in whether we allow people to come to the country legally, to give them a visa, whatever that is, to visit us for travel, tourism, student visas, work visas, green cards? Should that be a criteria? 617-266-6868 is the number. This is from Nancy. And this is what Nancy on Messenger wrote. Good morning, Jeff. Well, good morning to you, Nancy. Back when immigrants came to this country, again, we're talking legal immigration, that arrived on Ellis Island, they were checked out for health problems. They had to have a job and a place to live. It's not much different this time, than this. Now, I agree. I think Trump is trying to revive the Ellis Island model. And it's very true. When people came in through Ellis Island, if you had tuberculosis, if you had a serious illness, I'm sorry, if they felt you had a mental defect, whatever. Politically, if you were a communist or an anarchist or a subversive, they sent you back. They said, I'm sorry. No, we're not going to take care of the whole world. That's not our job. You want to come. You have to have a job. You have to be able to provide for yourself practically immediately. You have to have a place to stay or a sponsor. And you've got to be relatively healthy. Some are a little more healthy. Some are a little less healthy. But you're not here to be a burden or a drain on the public treasury. Now, I don't know how they're. Let's say if we did it through Ellis Island again, would we have 100 100 treadmills, and you come in and you're like let's say me, I'm coming in, I'm schlepping in, and they're like, well, we like that resume, Kuhner, but whoa, hey, did you ever try eating a salad once in a while? Get on that treadmill. Go. You got to burn that baby. You got to burn that fat off before we let you in. That's the so-called controversy. So, let me ask all of you, should people who are really obese or overweight, should they be disqualified from being given a visa and allowed to enter our country? I'm just curious. What do you say? Yes? No? Is this quote-unquote fat shaming? Do you think Democrats will use it to attack Trump as shaming fat people or obese people? Now, furthermore, let me just throw this on the table as well. What do you say to the argument that a lot of incredibly productive, creative, intelligent immigrants who came to the United States historically, many of them were overweight. We're not talking about somebody, who's got leukemia or brain cancer that we're bringing in. They're overweight. Does it lead to health issues? Of course. But if you do a cost-benefit analysis, many people overweight have been phenomenal immigrants. Should that be a disqualifier? I just got to throw that out there. And in retrospect, would that mean the Kuhner man would I be barred? You see how I'm conflicted here? Mike loves this new criteria because he says if they applied it over 25 years ago, I wouldn't have been allowed to come in. And he wouldn't have to deal with me on a daily basis every morning. So he loves this new criteria. Me, I don't know. I don't want to be a hypocrite about this. 617-266-6868. And then you've got Sandy, who, by the way, lost 80 pounds, is, honestly in tip-top shape, Awaken 180, really did, just worked. It was marvelous. Marvelous diet. And Sandy makes the point, now that she's slim, right, now everybody is, everybody can make fun of the Kuhner man because they've all lost weight in the booth there. Mike has been hitting the bike, and Sandy's been hitting Awaken 180. So everybody's making, jokes at my expense. But Sandy says, so are we maybe going to do it on a scale? Say you come in for just a travel visa or a student visa. Okay, 280 pounds. You've got to be less than 280. But if you're 280 and under, we'll let you in. But if you want to be on a work visa, it's 250. Okay? Then it's got to be 250 or under. But if you want to be a permanent resident, we're cutting it off at 220. So should we have a scale if for different visas, different weight benchmarks or different weight criteria? And what ultimate weight would you say is the cutoff? 250, 280, 300, 350? That's, we got to start looking into that if we're going to apply this criteria. So people ask me, how much do I weigh? Everybody's asking me that question. I'm a 260 man, 260 pounds. So maybe, let's do it this way then. Let's make the cutoff 260 pounds. I'm for it. I'm in. Anything less than 260, I'm screwed. You see my dilemma here? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. Should obesity, being too fat, hate to put it that bluntly, but that's what it is. 649 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, before we go to the blazing phone lines, the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Okay, here it is, Kuhner Country. Which should disqualify, and again, now we're talking about a legal immigrant. Which should disqualify an immigrant seeking entry into the United States? A, they don't have a job. B, they're fat. So what do you think is the bigger disqualifier? Which should disqualify an immigrant seeking entry to come to America, to entry into the United States? A, they don't have a job. B, they're fat. Personally, I'm an A on this, but then again, I am biased. So, but that's me. All right, you can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN as in a national ER. You can also vote via X, and I was extremely active on X last night. Really took it to Governor Maura Healey, but anyway, let that go. If you want to vote on X, you can. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, KUHNER. N as in National ER, at the Kuhner Report. Last mini point. In my defense, why are you overweight, Kuhner man? Why is it always the battle of the bulge with you? I am married to a great Italian cook. I'm serious. Grace, wow. Last night, for example, she made pasta in meat sauce. It was incredible. Just incredible. I loved it. The kids loved it. Ava brought one of her friends over. He loved it. So when you got a wonderful Italian cook for a wife, it's hard to stay slim. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm human. 617-266-6868. Larry in Arkansas. You're going to kick us off, Larry. Thanks for holding and welcome.
My word, Jeff. I have 5 fat friends. You're 4 of them. See, now, you and I can make jokes like that and not get offended. I could never say that to a woman.
Women tend to be very sensitive about their weight. I do agree with you on that, Larry.
So I am a former fat man myself. I've lost 90 pounds.
Wow.
And I got myself into it. I paid to get myself out of it. I didn't rely on the government. And so I agree with it. In being serious, excessive weight, I was classified by the VA as morbidly obese, contributes to 6 out of 10 of the leading causes of death. 6 out of 10. We need to stop having people come in that are a burden to the society, our society. You flip it. You couldn't be sick and go to a different country and expect them to take care of you. They would never let you in. Why do we always have to be the exception?
Well, yeah, you're completely right. And Larry, look, just to further, because I agree with you, we don't have an obligation to take sick people in or people who are morbidly obese, because you're right. That kind of obesity, really, you're right. It's going to kill you through diabetes or through heart disease or a heart attack, or there's so many other factors that it leads to. You're completely right. But this is what I think most Americans don't really quite comprehend. You go to, say, France, I don't care, Germany, Austria, Denmark, I take your pick, and you come in and you're sick, unless you have health insurance. Like you pay like at the airport or through your agent when you book a flight. Unless you have, travel health insurance, they're not going to take care of you. Or if they do take care of you, you got to give them a credit card. Like, in other words, you got to pay. We're the only ones who give it for free. So they're like, if you don't have the means to pay, they're not going to take care of you. They're going to put you on a plane and say, go back. It's not our problem. Our healthcare system is for our citizens and legal residents who live in our country. So, that's why I always get usually, not always, but often I get health insurance when I fly to another country. What is it? Travel health insurance or whatever. So we're the only ones that keep giving away our our healthcare system for free. And that's why people abuse it. And especially because we have very good, very high quality healthcare that most of the world, it's the envy of the world. So you're completely right, Larry. Look, say you have cancer and you go to France and you say, you know what, I'm not feeling well today. And you go to the hospital and you say, I got leukemia or a brain tumor or whatever, stomach cancer, and, I need help. They say, yeah, well, go back to America. Like, or, give us your credit card. Cut us a check. The check clears, we treat you. So I think that's what Americans don't understand. Larry, I got to ask you this, all kidding aside. What do you say to the argument that it is fat shaming? That, yeah, you can make an argument for, cancer or tuberculosis or, other, illnesses and diseases. But, if someone is 300 pounds, that person can still hold down a job, contribute, be productive, live decades and decades and decades. Yes, they'll have health problems, high blood pressure, cholesterol, probably type 2 diabetes, but it's not on the same par say, I don't know, having leukemia. What do you say to that argument that what we're doing now, that Trump is targeting and discriminating against the obese? What do you say to that argument, Larry?
This may seem off the wall, but I'll bring it right back. Yesterday, you talked about how veterans aren't given the same things, but they're held to a higher standard as illegal. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Veterans, you cannot. I love you, Jeff, but there is no way you go to join the military, the U.S. military. You would not have made the standards, right?
Yeah, that's true.
We have standards in the military for a reason. I was 6'4" when I went in, 200 pounds. They still made me lose 25 pounds because I was not in shape 200 pounds. I had a pot belly 200 pounds. So they said, you got to lose that. I had no choice or I could get thrown out. We have standards for a reason, and especially when it comes to your health. There should be, there's always exceptions to every rule, but we need to go back to public shaming, in my opinion, because we've lowered the standards on everything. Everybody's running around, I'm a victim, I'm a victim, I'm a victim. You hear them demanding for bigger seats in the airplanes, bigger hallways, bigger this, all this stuff. When did this country have to start accommodating to the few when the many have their proverbial stuff together? Trying to temper what I say so I don't get too fined. We got to go back to standards. And I love especially what Pete's doing for the military, because I've been back here. I've gone on the base here in Arkansas several times. I look around at some of these people in uniform. I'm going, what happened? It's got to come back. The standards have to apply across the board. And these people shouldn't be a burden to the medical system. It's bad enough the illegals are. There was a great scene in Godfather 2 that shows Don Corleone coming over as a child after his father was murdered. And he's at Ellis Island. Someone brought this up in one of your messages. He was rejected and kept in quarantine because he had something wrong with him.
That's right.
Until he got over it, he was not allowed in. We got to get back to that.
Interesting. Larry, as always, really, really good call. Larry, thank you very much. I appreciate it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask you. Larry in Arkansas says, no, we need to start public shaming again. And there's nothing wrong with shaming people who are morbidly obese, especially if they're going to be coming into our country as immigrants. We have a right to uphold high standards and not bring in people who are too overweight, will be eventually a burden on our healthcare system. And he's saying not just to foreigners, even to ourselves. Our military is overweight. American citizens are overweight. Jeff Kuhner is overweight. I mean, in other words, it's time for the country to start losing weight. Now, just so that you know, let me just give you these statistics and you make of it what you will. The United States has an adult obesity rate, 40.3% of the entire country. Okay, let's forget the 0.3, just make it simple, round it off. 40% of all American adults are considered obese. Obese. Not, pot belly, little overweight, whatever. Ooh, I could lose 10, whatever. Love handles, whatever you want to call them. We're talking obese. 40%. That's of Americans. And obesity now is, by the way, chronic among young people, teenagers. Many of them are already pre-diabetic. A lot of it is they eat a lot of junk food, processed food. They don't work out. They don't exercise. They're sedentary. They sit in front of these freaking video games all day or television or in front of the iPad or these screens, and they don't move. So you combine all the junk with the fact that they don't do anything except watch a screen 10, 12 hours a day. You've got yourself a massive fat problem, obesity problem among young people, but even among adults. So it is a problem. There's no question. It's a massive problem. 617-266-6868. Lynn in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Lynn, and welcome.
Jeff, how are you today?
Good. How are you, Lynn?
Good. I wanted to make a point. My daughter traveled to Germany a year after high school on a student visa, and she was required to not only have health care in the United States, to show she had a certain amount in her checking account, to show that she had a place to live, and she had to purchase their health care plan over there, number one. So I wanted to bring that up. The U.S. spends over $200 billion a year on obesity-related issues, although I think it's way more and closer to $1 trillion because a lot of cancers, et cetera, are caused by obesity. However, this is rich, very rich, coming from a government who created the food pyramid in the late 1970s because of the corruption of big sugar and big food, telling us that fat makes us fat and that sugar doesn't, and so we should be heavily laden on carbs. And look what's happened. We started at 0 cases of childhood type 2 diabetes in 1980 to astronomical numbers today. We need education in this country. Big food does not care what they put in our food. In Europe, it's a whole different story. And let's look at SNAP and what percentage of junk food is bought by people on the welfare system, and it's more than 25%. So we have a big issue in this country, but again, it's our government, it's the corruption of the government that has caused this issue, and we need to scale it back. But
that's an excellent point. No, Lynn, that's an excellent point. And look, let me just, I can only, piggyback off of what you said because all your points are spot on. When I was recently in Europe, when I was visiting Croatia, long story short, there are a lot of tourists. Okay, Croatia's full of tourists now. Full. So I met a lot of actually Europeans, Brits, people from England, people from Scotland, Germans, Italians, Austrians. I mean, it's loaded. And they were very nice. They're very polite. They're not anti-American. And they love America. They really do. There's so many things about America they love, they admire. But to a man and a woman, they all said this: Americans are too fat. Not in an insulting way. They're just like, they don't understand. They're like, you Americans eat way too much. You eat way too much processed food, exactly your point, which is, garbage, full of carbs and sugar. They go like, we don't understand. Like, you're the greatest country in the world. How could you guys trash yourselves like this? Like, they're genuinely befuddled. So I was just struck by that. And they say, like Americans have, big cars, big homes, big roads, which they love. All of that they love. They go, but you have big people. Why do you have such big people? Like overweight people. So that's number one. Number two, I got a chance over the weekend. I don't have much time off, but I got a chance over the weekend to watch a film noir, which I love. Okay, long story short, it's called The Blind Spot. It's actually quite good, but let that go. It's kind of a mystery crime thriller. My point is, and I know it's Hollywood, but still, look how thin. And I don't mean like the leading stars, in the movie. Well, you say, well, those are Hollywood actors. No, they take shots of people in the streets. They take shots of, people in the city. This was set in New York. Look how thin everybody was. I mean, their waistlines. I'm like, wow, what happened? And, just look at any documentary of the 1940s, the 1950s, just how people, I'm not saying, look, you'll see an obese person here or there, or an overweight person here or there, but they're the exception. They're not the norm. And I think it's clear. And look, they didn't have gyms the way we have them. They don't have all this modern workout equipment that we have now. It was their diet. It's so obvious it was their diet. And so you're completely right. A lot of it is the foods that we eat. But Lynn, let me go back to your first point, because I think that's, I want to keep it on track regarding immigration. And that's what I was telling I was saying many Americans don't realize this. When your daughter went to study abroad in Germany, that, she has to have a certain amount of money to prove that she can financially sustain and take care of herself. She has to prove she has health care here. She has to buy the health care plan over there. In other words, no, you're not going to be a ward on the German welfare system. The German welfare system is for Germans. It's not for outsiders. Now, that's the case in, I think, practically every European country. And by the way, every Middle Eastern country and every Asian country and most Latin American countries. In other words, for most of the world, that's their standard. Why are we the only ones? We're the only ones. As Trump would say, he likes the word stupid. He uses it a lot. Why are we the ones that are so stupid? So somebody comes on a trip, I don't care, let's reverse it, from Germany. And all of a sudden now they can go into our hospital for whatever reason and we got to treat them. And it's all on our dime. It's insane. Lynn, do you think we should have these obesity, overweight requirements when giving out visas to people who want to come into our country? Are you a yes or a no on this?
I think that instead of putting people on a scale, I think, like other countries, they need to be able to pay for an insurance, a health insurance, and prove they have one, because the obesity epidemic is very expensive. And if they're going to be on welfare, they can't come in. I don't think so.
To me, that's the bigger one of the two. I agree with you. If you don't have a job and you can't prove that you're not going to be on welfare, I don't want you in our country, period. We're not a charity. We're a country. I'm with you all the way. Lynn, thank you very much for that call. Frank in Boston. Thanks for holding, Frank, and welcome.
You a great show. Look,
thank you, Frank.
I have 2 points to make. One is I find it interesting that the same leftists that might object to screening criteria for legal immigrants were fine when we had rapists, murderers, drug runners, child abusers, child traffickers teeming over our border unchecked. So that's the first point. The second point is I do believe some kind of health screening criteria should be part of a comprehensive bundle of criteria that we screen legal immigrants coming over here. That would include things like potential productivity as a member of society, employability, education level, desire to acculturate. Either they speak English or agree to learn English. What their current state was in the country they're coming from, and then health should be one. And I would make it more comprehensive than just how much they weigh or being fat. That needs to be a factor, and they need to determine how best to determine that. But to your other caller's point, obesity leads to so many other things, and we don't want to have these people coming in and being a burden. In fact, they're coming here to realize their dream. Well, we just want the people that are best equipped to achieve their dreams in the United States by being a productive member of society and not a burden.
To your first, by the way, you're spot on, Frank. Absolutely spot on. Dead on every point. Frank, to going to your first point, look, I think you're right. It has to be much more than just whether they're overweight or not. It has to be, I love your idea. It's got to be total. It's got to be comprehensive. Are they here to assimilate? Can they speak English? Do they have a job? Do they have skills that we actually need? And obviously, yes. Are they relatively healthy? I mean, we can't take care. Look, the whole world has. I don't mean every person, but cancer is an epidemic around the world. Cardiovascular disease, as I said, it's the number one killer in the entire world. It's the number one thing people die of. So, of course, they'd love to come into America. We have the best healthcare system in the world. Now, you keep bringing all these people in and put them on our healthcare system, you're going to bankrupt our healthcare system. So it's a question now of survival. We can't do what we've been doing. We have to bolster the standards. We have no choice. And I think that's why Trump is doing this. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a lot of controversy now over new guidelines and requirements that the Trump administration, through the State Department, has now sent out to case officers, American embassies, consulates all around the world regarding, again, we're talking legal immigration, whether when visas are given to immigrants, whether it's travel, tourism visas, work visas, or even a permanent residency, green card. They are now going to be adding a lot more requirements, financial requirements, health requirements. But the one that's causing the most, and I'm putting this in air quotes, controversy, is they are now saying if you're too obese, if you're too overweight, it's grounds to be disqualified from being given a visa. Agree, disagree. Let's go, before we go to the phone lines, it's 7:20. You know what that means on a Wednesday. Truth or troll? Take it away, Mike.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
Today's entry of Truth or Troll comes from President Trump in an interview with Fox News when he had some thoughts he wanted to get off his chest regarding Chuck Schumer after the government shutdown ended.
I feel badly because I've known Chuck Schumer. I knew him when he was a person who loved Israel, and now he's a Palestinian. He's become a Palestinian, and it's amazing. I've never seen a politician change so much. Also, he doesn't have, he was a pretty talented guy. He's lost his talent.
So this is an interesting one because I think it could really go either way. Do you think he really feels bad for Chuck Schumer, or is he just trolling him?
He's trolling him. I think he's clearly, no, he's doing it that sarcastic Trump way. I feel so sorry for the guy. He's lost his fastball. He's getting basically eaten alive by his own base. Oh boy, he's all washed up. I'm so sorry for him. I gotta say, he's the funniest president we've ever had. I mean, I love the guy. I love his policies, but even if you hate his policies, the guy's a riot. He really is. That, by the way, it was a great truth or troll, Mike. Let me ask the entire audience. Do you think when Trump says that he feels bad for Chuck Schumer because he's lost his talent, do you think he's A, telling the truth? He really feels sorry for Chucky? Or B, do you think he's just, he's needling him? He's trolling the guy. I think he's trolling, but that's me. I want to hear from you. A, truth, B, troll. You can vote on our webpage, WRKO.com/Kuhner, KUHN as in national ER. You can also vote via X, all one word, at the Kuhner Report. Margaret in Amesbury. Thanks for holding, Margaret, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me on. Good morning.
Good morning, Margaret.
Just a quick point because, it sounds like a great idea, but as with anything, when the government gets involved, sometimes we know, it's like, well, what's the metric that's going to be used? So just to put this out there, Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he was, Mr. Olympia, was 6 feet 2 inches, 245 pounds. That puts him in the obesity range for BMI. So my question is, what metric are they going to use? And I know that we're not getting, bodybuilders lining up to come in, but what metric are they going to use?
Well, Margaret, what I'm going to do at 7:30 is I'm going to read the 2 paragraphs where they really lay out the guidance. And I think you'll get a real sense. But what they stress, even in the 2 paragraphs, is they say, look, this is your discretion. And what they mean is not the power trip, but, they would be like, well, look, you look at Schwarzenegger. Yeah, technically, he's overweight, quote unquote. The guy's all muscle. This is not Mr. This is not Mr. Diabetes. This is not a walking heart attack. So they would say, of course you let him in. But then you have Jeff Kuhner You know, and they look at me and they're like, they're on the fence, you know? But then say, do you know who Congressman Jerry Nadler is? I mean, can you visualize who Jerry Nadler is, Margaret?
Yes.
Or Chris Christie? Okay, say Jerry Nadler or Chris Christie were immigrants trying to apply to come in. They'd be like, "Niet, no." No. So I think, using their discretion, Schwarzenegger's a yes. I'm on the fence. Nadler and Christie, no. What say you, Margaret?
Yeah, so that makes more sense. So if it's on paper it's really hard to, for that to translate where is it muscle, is it fat, obviously. But if it's at the discretion of a person, in person making that decision, that makes a little bit more sense.
But I want to ask you this. Do you care? What I'm saying is, should it be a criteria? Should a Jerry Nadler, a Chris Christie, maybe again, borderline, but neat. Should that be a criteria? What say you?
I don't think it's an easy as yes or no because, first of all, where is the need for employment right now? Because I know that our skilled labor is definitely hurting right now. Any blue-collar job will tell you they can't get people. And people that aren't physically able to do the requirements of those jobs, they're not people that we need right now. But we also need people, I'm sure, in technology and things like that. And if that's not restrictive to their job, does it matter? I don't know. I don't think it's a cut and dry yes or no.
Interesting. If you were a case officer, if I could put you in a time machine 25 years ago, would you have let me in?
Well, what would be your reason for coming here?
Well, I mean, I want to work at the Washington Times. I've got certain skills that other journalists don't have. But you're looking at me, you're looking at my BMI, you're looking, I'm pre-diabetic. Does Margaret say yes? Does Margaret say no?
I'm going to say probably no, Jeff. I'm sorry. I love you, but probably not.
Oh, jeez. I thought you'd say you'd sneak me in. Margaret, thank you very much for that call. Okay, remember when I said maybe 15, 20 minutes ago, we're the only ones that do this? You come into our country, it doesn't matter, you're just here on a 1-week vacation or you're on a student visa or even on a work visa and suddenly you get sick and we take care of you A to Z. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars, it doesn't matter. We take care of you. That no other country does this. Well, many of you were texting the Kuhner man saying, but Jeff, Germany, France, Britain, Denmark, Japan, South Korea, Australia. But what about Canada, Jeff? What about Canada? That generous socialist country just north of us. My ancestral homeland. Listen now to this. This is from a friend of mine. Somewhere in the Maritimes, he's got a beautiful farm, second home. He's an American, but he, spends a lot of time in Canada on his farm in the Maritimes. I don't want to say exactly which province, but in the Maritimes. So this is what he wrote to me. Jeff, as you know, I spend a great deal of time in Canada. Their crappy and broken healthcare system notwithstanding. If I showed up at one of their hospitals at the emergency room, for example, I would not get treated unless I provided my Visa or American Express card with enough credit to cover the costs. I know this because I had to do it once. So even in Canada, you think they just let you come in and suddenly, you can have access to our healthcare system? No way. Because it'll bankrupt the Canadian system like it would bankrupt every other system in Europe or in Asia. We're the only, I'm sorry, as Trump would say, we're the only stupid people that do this. Now, this is from 781. You can text the Kuhner man, 70470, 70470. Jeff, Dinesh D'Souza often quotes one of his Indian immigrant friends who once said, quote, I wanted to come to a country where even the poor people are fat, unquote. Now, to be fair, this is what I think also Americans don't quite fully understand. because of our free market system. Now, what Lynn said earlier is true. There's big food, there's big sugar, there's a collusion between them and the government, the food pyramid, where they really put a lot of pressure and propaganda and marketing to convince Americans to eat a lot of carbs, to eat a lot of processed foods, to eat a lot of junk food. And that's clearly a key reason why so many Americans are obese. But there's another side to it, which is it's how successful our free market and capitalist system is. That we produce abundance. So much so, almost too much abundance. And what we consider poor in our country, the legal definition of poverty, and this Indian immigrant that Dinesh D'Souza speaks of is completely true, is considered either middle class or wealthy in most of the world. You know, a poor person, considered poor, has an apartment, heated, air conditioned in the summer, flat screen television, 3 square meals a day. Often they're overweight because they got access. Now, they're eating too much macaroni and cheese and junk food and chips. Yes, yes, yes. But they've got so much food, they're overeating. They've got access to Medicaid, which gives you, compared to other countries, world-class health care. So their health care, even what they own, their possessions, the amount of food that they eat. You know, in India, most people are still starving. In China, most people are still starving. Believe it or not, in countries like that, being overweight is a bit of a status symbol. I'm serious. It's like, oh, you know, a person can eat, a person's wealthy, person's well off. Because everybody else is poor and hungry. I'm not making an argument for obesity. What I'm just trying to say is part of the reason, and we take it for granted, and I remember this when I first came to America, and Canada's a very rich, or at least it was, a very rich, prosperous country. Not so much now under the crazy liberal leadership. But even then, even as a Canadian, when I first did my PhD coursework at Ohio University, and I was eating every day at the cafeteria, I had a meal plan, 3 meals a day. Everything was buffet. Breakfast, buffet. Lunch, buffet. Dinner, buffet. I couldn't believe how much variety of food there was every single meal. There's nothing like it in the world. I mean, you want pancakes, you want eggs, you want waffles, you want toast, you want fruit, you want yogurt, you want bagels, cream cheese. That's breakfast. Lunch, every sandwich under the sun, casserole, soup, salad bar. Dinner, I mean, it was, you want, meats, you want pizza, you want pasta. Again, salad bar, fruits, desserts. I mean, I'm like, I've never seen something like this. And every student just acted like, yeah, that's just the way it is. An incredible amount of abundance. And that comes from the incredible wealth, and that comes from our free market capitalist system. I'm just calling it as it is. 617-266-6868. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Andy, go ahead, my friend.
Well, first of all, Jeff, I'd be willing to bet a steak dinner that the Moonbats this morning are probably wishing they could get into a time machine and go back 25 years.
No, that's true. Oh, would they say no? They'd never let me in. If they could, they would have never let me in, Andy.
I mean, I can just hear it now. He's too heavy. He's a fatso. Don't let him in.
But, Andy, you've seen Rocky, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, Andy, listen. If they had that criteria 25 years ago, I swear to God, they wouldn't be calling the movie Rocky. They'd be calling it Jeffrey. Me. I was working out to make sure I get sick. I get allowed into America. I got to lose. Grace, I got to lose 90 pounds. I've got 3 months to do it. I'm going to go the distance. If I had to lose 100 pounds, I swear to God, I would lose 100 pounds. But anyway, Andy, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay. Just between yesterday's show and today's show, Jeff, and this came to me yesterday, one simple way to solve all of this is to just put in place a solid policy that makes it clear that you must be an American citizen to receive public assistance of any kind. Like here in Massachusetts, I would put this log on the fire that maybe we should start a movement to amend the Massachusetts state constitution to say that you must be an American citizen to receive public assistance anywhere in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, state or federal, and that proof of said citizenship must be presented upon applying.
I could not agree with you more. Oh, I so agree. What you've just identified, if we could just do that and enforce it, half the problems in our country would disappear. I mean, we've got too many leeches, parasites, bloodsuckers who are, they're bleeding us white. I'm sorry, but that's just the case. And Andy, you're dead on. And, Andy, I'm going to read the criteria. Okay. I promise when I come back. And Andy, I just want almost a yes or a no from you. Do you think weight, obesity should be a criteria when we give visas to immigrants?
I think it should, and if they're allowed in, they should have to show that they have an ability to take care of themselves, whether it's health insurance
or financial means, that they have a bank account with enough money. No, I hear you. Andy, as always a great call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so as you know, the Trump administration now, through the State Department, is going to toughen up substantially the criteria, the guidelines, to allow, this is legal immigration now, not illegal, legal immigration, regarding giving out visas to, legal immigrants. Travel visas, tourist visas, student visas, work visas, including, yes, even permanent residency green cards. So you're going to have to be able to show that you're able to financially sustain yourself, that you, especially if you want to have a work visa or a permanent residency, that you have a job and that you have skills that the American people need. But they also now want to have certain health criteria, medical conditions, that they say if you're sick or diseased or you're mentally ill, that this could be a real undue burden, that's the term they use, on the American taxpayer, and that hence these people should be rejected. So I'm going to read to you the 2 paragraphs where they lay out the specific criteria. Now, again, this is at the discretion of the case officers. This is all on a case-by-case basis. So basically they're saying use your judgment, but this is what should guide you. Quote, certain medical conditions, including but not limited to cardiovascular diseases, respiratory diseases, cancers, diabetes, metabolic diseases, neurological diseases, and mental health conditions, can require hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of care. And it goes on to state, quote, does the applicant have adequate financial resources to cover the costs of such care over his entire expected lifespan without seeking public cash assistance or long-term institutionalization at government expense? And then it goes on to say that there's already a medical exam that's mandatory if you want to have a work visa or if you want to have a green card or if you're a refugee coming into the United States. But this medical examination is for, like, contagious diseases, tuberculosis, whatever, COVID, whatever it may be. It's not, cancer, diabetes. And now they go on to say that obesity and the fact that people can be overweight and their BMI index, then these case officers have to look at whether the overall impact this will have if someone would be unlikely to be able to pay for their own medical care due to the conditions that arise from, saying, being overweight or obese. And again, they stress, and I just want to, again, this must be addressed on I'm just giving you the direct quote, individual case-by-case basis. So, they're not saying, hey, you're overweight, you're out. But they're saying it's a factor and you need to look into it. And in some cases, if you think the person is overweight or will develop serious health issues when they arrive and they don't have the means to take care of themselves or pay for their own health care or medical costs, then you just write no. Your request is denied. So agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. I want to read to you, this is on Messenger from David. And this is what David wrote. And it sums up what some of you are saying. Most of you are in agreement. I'm just looking at the text line. I'm looking at the emails I'm getting, but there is some disagreement. And I think David speaks for many of them when he says, Jeff, this is fat shaming. It is ridiculous. Just because someone is fat doesn't mean they are unhealthy or have type 2 diabetes. So, and I've heard a couple of you say that. I mean, I've read comments from some of you saying, Jeff, Trump is going to get hammered over this because the left, the media, even some Republicans are going to say you're fat shaming. Just because you're overweight doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a burden to taxpayers or to our healthcare system. 617-266-6868. Let me also throw this log on the fire. Are we too overweight as a nation? Do you believe that we do have an obesity problem? Is it an epidemic? And what do you think is the major driving cause of it? Is it our diet? Is it the fact that we eat overprocessed foods? Is it the fact now that we're all on a computer? Many of us work in, jobs where it's not physical. You're at the office sitting down all day. Then you come home, you eat. Then usually you're in front of a TV screen or in front of an iPad or in front of a laptop. So we're just too sedentary. We don't move enough. We don't exercise enough. And over time, you're just going to have a fatter, more overweight population. Do you think it's the sin of gluttony? That we just eat more because we can? And that food is no longer eaten, you eat to live. You eat because it's pleasure. You eat because, it tastes good and you want to eat more of it. What do you think is driving this obesity crisis, if you believe there is one? 617-266-6868. Lines are loaded. Dave in Revere. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Dave?
Well, it's not sunny out today, Jeff, but it's okay.
As long as it's not snowing, Dave, for me, that's all that matters.
Jeff, don't worry about it. December 19th, we may have some. 'Cause I was born in the winter, Jeff. I was born just before Christmas, so you know what I mean.
I do love snow during Christmas. I agree with you, Dave. Buddy, what do you make of this? Are we overweight as a people? Number one, and number two, should obesity, fatness, whatever you want to call it, should that be a criteria in denying visas to immigrants coming into our country?
Jeff, I think it should be. Jeff, let me be honest. You know my job. So with sometimes, Jeff, I've gotten people in this car to where the seatbelt doesn't fit. And, Jeff, that's how big I've had some of these passengers that I've had to pick up. As far as coming into the country, yeah, we shouldn't have any more issues as far as people coming into the country illegally. And, Jeff, here's what I mainly called about. I was at Bank of America a couple weeks back. Jeff, my money goes to Bank of America. And I asked for a small loan. Now, before I could even talk to anybody, you got two illegals, can't even speak English, don't even know what the lady's saying. They got all these papers in their hand. She's telling them, just go get this stamped and come back with it after the stamp is on the paper, whatever she needed to get. They're gonna get it. They're gonna get a loan, Jeff, for whatever they want for $30,000 because the so-called illegal governor is giving them $30,000 apiece. Jeff, all I wanted was a small personal loan. They says, no, we don't do personal loans. I said, so lady, you're giving the illegals what they want because of this governor, and they can get whatever they want, and we're the ones who are paying for it? Jeff, discrimination on me. Jeff, I'm working 7 days a week, buddy. 7 days a week. Without, very rarely even getting off on a Sunday, just taking a Sunday off. But I'm working 7 days a week, Jeff, putting 80 hours a week in. I'm paying my taxes. My money goes to Bank of America. They know that I'm working. But they're not going to give me a small loan because there's something I need to do and take care of. And I wasn't asking for no $30,000, Jeff. And we're gonna have to. They don't have to pay it back.
Well, look, Dave, it's beyond outrageous. It's beyond disgusting. It's what I wrote on X last night, and I hope everybody in the audience goes at the Kuhner Report. That's my handle on my X account, where I call out the Republicans. I call out Maura Healey, and I lay out exactly how much she's giving to the illegals. But here's what I said to the Republicans, and I promise, Dave, I'm coming right back to you. If the Republicans in Massachusetts don't defeat Healey in the next election, next year, then I'm telling you it's time to form a third party. Because she has run this state into the ground. And in particular, and you said it, it's discrimination against American citizens. She's literally discriminating against Americans in favor of illegals. You're 1,000% correct. They're going to get their loan, and it's a $30,000 loan. And two people, that's $60,000 loan. And those are high-risk loans. And you know who's underwriting it? We are. Not Bank of America. We are. Because if Bank of America goes under, as we saw in 2008, 2009, we, the taxpayers, bail them out. Because they're, quote, too big to fail, unquote. But you, who work 7 days a week, and I'm telling you, you're not the only one in Kuhner country. I'm sad to say, I can't tell you how many emails and texts I get from people who work 6 days a week, 7 days a week. They're like you. I wish I'd have a Sunday off. Jeff, I take Christmas off, maybe New Year's Day, 4th of July. I got 4 or 5 days off the entire year. And when I need my government to give me a helping hand, because everything now is way too expensive. Trump is completely right. Not 1,000%. I'm telling you, 1,000,000%. He said this yesterday to the Republicans. Again, are you all stupid? We have an affordability crisis. You've got to talk about the affordability crisis and everything that we're doing to bring prices and inflation down. This all happened under Biden and the Democrats. And tell them we're doing everything we can, and here's what we're going to continue to do, because the American people are hurting. Everybody in the middle class, the working class, everybody's hurting. So you need a personal loan to probably get you out of a jam because you're in debt like everybody else is in debt, because that's the only way to survive. And there's no money for you. And Dave, I got to say this, and I promise I'm going to come back to you. I hate Bank of America. I can't stand Bank of America. Because about, 15 years ago, don't quote me on this, okay? Could have been maybe 13 years ago, 15 years ago, It's about 2010, 2011-ish. I needed a loan. To be more accurate, Grace and I needed a loan. And we have excellent credit. We have assets here in the United States. We work hard. We save. And we went to Bank of America. We asked for a loan. And like you, it wasn't that much. Blank you. Blank you. No, go fly a kite. Blank you. And so they called me. I don't know why they didn't call Grace, because Grace she's the finance minister, but somehow they got my number. They didn't call her. They called me and they said, I'm sorry, we're rejecting you for your loan. And I said, that's okay. That's fine. I said, but I want you to know something. I'm going to make sure, and I'm going to do everything in my power, that you guys never get another bailout again. Because you're turning down good, decent people who need help. And we're good for the money, and you know we're good for the money. And I see your ads, and watch these Bank of America ads. You know, you see them all the time. We're there for the little guy, the farmer, the homeowner, the small business person. That's what we do at Bank of America. No, that's not what you're there to do. You don't give a damn about us. So I don't care for Bank of America. I personally don't do my banking at Bank of America. I told Grace, pull all our accounts out. And we did end up getting a loan with another bank. And I said, we're going with that bank. You treat me right, I treat you right. So to me, Bank of America may be the worst. I know everybody's got a horror story. You may disagree with me. My experience, Bank of America is the worst. My advice to you, Dave, I don't know your personal financial situation, so please take this with a grain of salt. But if you can, get your money out of Bank of America. If this is how they're going to treat you and put illegals ahead of you, because the government is backstopping it, and if they're going to discriminate against you, Dave, if I said to you that banks are discriminating against blacks just because they're blacks, or Asians just because they're Asians, or Latinos or Jews or whatever, everybody would say, yeah, take your money out. Boycott them. Well, they're doing us one up. They're discriminating against you and against us because we're Americans. We're Americans. We don't get loans that we don't get the loans that they give to the illegals, and then some. And then some. They won't give you a $10,000 loan, but they'll give a $30,000 loan to an illegal. So, no more bailouts for you, and we take our money elsewhere. Dave, agree, disagree?
Jeff, I agree, and you don't have to tell me which bank you have, but I would like to know. But, Jeff, let me
TD Bank. TD Bank. If you want to know, it's the TD Bank.
Okay, Jeff, thank you. But one other thing I want to explain, too. My younger brother applied for housing. He's a veteran of the National Guard for over almost 24 years. He's disabled, Jeff, and he tried to apply for housing and everything else, so he's been trying to go find out what his status is. Jeff, they tell him to get in line. The illegals are getting it before he gets it. And if it wasn't for me working, Jeff, he wouldn't be able to afford the apartment that we have right here in Malden. We've been here our whole life. And they tell him to get in line because of the illegals getting everything they want because of the so-called illegal governor we get. And, Jeff, and one other quick point. Last week when you had Mandani, we were talking about Mandani last week. Jeff, the guy I had was from Bulgaria. He was 80-something years old. He was talking about the persecution going on when you were talking about it last week. And, Jeff, he says he lived in New York for 30 years, and he's so glad that he came to America, but he said he got out of New York just in time because he saw this coming down the line 10 years ago. And he moved out of New York, and he's now living here in Boston up here.
I don't think people realize how bad New York City is getting. You're right. And it's becoming increasingly Islamicized. And you're starting to see Sharia law, believe it or not, pop up. You're seeing militant Muslims, and you're seeing real discrimination against Jews and against Christians on the streets. And it's becoming more and more tolerated and more accepted. And beyond even that, now they're also going after white people, and they're going after middle working class white neighborhoods. So the writing is on the wall. There's no question. And everything now, he's named his transition team. I don't want to get too far off, but Mamdani is named his transition team. He's named the people around him. They're just as radical as he is. He's going full speed ahead. He's not stopping. So, that Bulgarian man is completely right. If you can, get out of New York. Because I'm telling you, Mamdani is for real. This guy's not playing around. Dave, thank you very, very much for that call. Deborah in Boston. Thanks for holding, Deborah, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff.
Deborah, I haven't heard from you in a while. How are you?
Well, you know what's funny? I've tried to call in a couple of times, and I haven't gotten through. You're getting too popular. Don't let it go to your head.
Now, Deborah, I've got to ask you, because you famously said on the Kuhner Report, I think it was a couple of years ago, that you're over 50, you look great in a bikini. That's what, according to what you said, and you don't care how people feel about it. So I got to ask you, double-barreled question. Are you still looking good in a bikini? In other words, are you still fit, in good shape? And what do you make of the fact now that Trump wants more people like you who are fit and in good shape to be given visas to come into the United States? Are you like the idea, Deborah, or you don't like the idea?
Oh, my God, I can't believe you remember that.
It's a classic. Deborah, I'm telling you, it's a classic.
Okay, well, here's the thing, Jeff. What I want people to know is actually easy. I eat beef and eggs every single day. So there's something wrong with our food. It's the processed food. It's all the fake crap. It's the pesticides, the ingredients you can't pronounce. People, have you ever talked to people that just take a trip to Europe or go there for a semester? I have a friend who went to Italy, and she was just stunned. She came back and she said, Deborah, oh my God, I ate pizza, I ate pasta, I ate everything, and I lost weight. Like, there's something wrong with our food. It's not just carbs or whatever. It's our food is toxic. This is not normal, all these fat people.
Deborah, do you think Trump is right to make obesity and being overweight a criteria for allowing immigrants to come into our country or giving them visas?
More than that, I really hope we have a moment of reflection. So, our own citizens can maybe look in the mirror and just reflect. There's something crazy about obesity. I had health problems. I don't know if you remember that as well. I was a little bit overweight in my 20s. And so I started going hardcore, eating salad and non-fat, low-fat, everything wrong, basically. But people still believe this stuff, counting calories, exercising like crazy. I started having epileptic seizures. That's what happened to me. So I spent 5 years in the medical system doing everything they told me. I was heavily medicated on anti-seizure meds. I was a mess. And somehow I kind of stumbled on little bits of information that they used to prescribe a high-fat diet to people having seizures. And I kind of quit my meds cold turkey. I went into my doctor and said, I'm not doing this anymore.
Deborah, can you do me a favor? I'm up against a hard break. I want to come back to you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Deborah in Boston. She is on fire. She says that when she was younger, in her 20s, she was slightly overweight. But she did what the medical establishment told her to do. She ate a lot of salad, a lot of low-fat or non-fat food, exercised a lot, and then she started to develop issues with seizures, epilepsy. And then she started to eat fat. She started to eat eggs, beef. She went against the grain. And all of a sudden, not only did the seizures stop, but Deborah began to lose weight. And now she is fit as a fiddle. Deborah, did I sum up your position accurately?
Perfectly, Jeff.
Now, Deborah, what is it about the low-fat, non-fat diet that doesn't work? Is it because it's all loaded with sugars, or it stimulates sugar or insulin production in your body? So you think you're actually losing weight, but in fact, it's causing you to put on even more weight? Is that what it is?
Well, it keeps you hungry. You're starving, right? I mean, what's more satisfying than a big bowl of beef stew or a big 4-egg omelet with cheese and onions and peppers and mushrooms, right?
That's an excellent point.
It's turning off the hunger. And I've lived it. I know what it feels like to be starving all the time. So, you know, the problem, there's something wrong with Americans, I don't know, or people in general. After I had this success, and then it became so easy. I eat normal foods, everything that our great-grandparents would recognize as food. I eat eggs and meat, vegetables, butter, cheese, whatever. Guess what, Jeff? I even eat ice cream. I'm not suffering. But I went to a nutrition program like 15 years ago to study different dietary theories. And I was so excited, and I wanted to share this information with friends and family. And they knew what happened to me. They knew that I got off my pharmaceuticals. And people are so defensive and angry. It was almost like trying to tell an alcoholic, like, hey, stop drinking. And I don't know what's wrong, because we are so fat and we're arrogant as Americans, I think. It's like we have an emotional or mental problem that we don't want to face. And here's the thing, Jeff. If you're fat and you're on a ton of meds, you're setting yourself up. You're dependent. You know, we talk about freedom and individual liberty and all that. I hate to break it to you. You're going to be dependent on the state.
Well, you're dead on. I mean, I'm just thinking of myself as you're talking. Really, I mean, I'm being serious. I mean, I'm on I don't want to give you my whole medical history, but I'm on insulin. I'm on metformin. I'm on blood pressure medication, cholesterol medication. And you're completely right. I'm thinking like, yeah, of course I'm dependent. You know, I'm basically a slave to pharmaceuticals and, you know, and eventually the government. You're completely right. No, I think you're dead on. And I think part of what's happening is, and I really want to credit RFK Jr., I think he's been a real trailblazer in this. Americans are addicted to processed foods. I think there's no question. And I'm including myself in this. And over processed foods. And I think that's what's driving, I'm not saying it's all of it, but that's what's driving so much of our obesity epidemic. Because you're right. Look, you know, you talked about Italy. I can only speak of Croatia. I was there for, you know, a week. They eat. I mean, man, do they eat. But they're all thin. And so what they told me was, they go, it's not the calories. They go, you Americans are counting calories. They're like, it's not the calories. We eat more than enough calories. You have to eat whole foods. And it's, you know, organic, fresh food. It's eggs, not processed, but real cheese, butter, beef, vegetables, fruits. They go, you can eat, just eat. And they go, you're never going to be hungry. Don't look at the calories. And by the way, fat apparently is good. They go, it's good. And they go, you're going to see, you lay off all of the cereals and the macaroni and cheese and the pasta is good, but it's a certain type of pasta. That's why the Italians, they eat the good kind of pasta. You know, they don't eat the over-processed pasta that we have here, which they sell for $1 or $1.50. That's just sugar. Really, what you're just digesting is sugar. So, you know, so they're like, look, eat, you know, breakfast, lunch, dinner, you know, and you eat well, and it's delicious food. It's fresh food. It tastes really good, and you don't put on weight. If anything, you keep losing weight. Your body, it's like it kickstarts your metabolism. And your metabolism just goes faster and faster and faster. So you have more energy, and the weight just keeps coming off, or it stays off. You know, I, on the other hand, well, you know, I mean, I eat too much processed food. And you can feel it. It just, it sticks in that belly. It won't go, man. And you do get cravings. There is slightly, I mean, I don't know if addictive is too strong a word, but you get powerful cravings. There's no question. your body almost gets hooked on it. It wants it. It wants more of it. I think it's the sugar. But anyway, whatever it is, I think we do have an obesity problem. I agree. And look, I think, RFK Jr. is right. In the end, we've got to eat better. We've got to eat fresher. We've got to eat like our grandparents or great-grandparents ate. And a lot of our obesity issues are going to go away. 617-266-6868. Couple lines are open if you want to jump on. I want to read this text because we're talking obviously about immigration, legal immigration, not just illegal immigration, and what kind of criteria we want in legal immigrants to our country. And that's from, as little as a tourist or, students or people on a work visa or people who, will come here to, get a green card and maybe eventually become citizens. And I want to read this. It's a very interesting text. By the way, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. This is from 617. Jeff, we need an embargo on all immigration for a period of 5 years, simply to sort out who is actually in the country, and in theory at least, to allow assimilation to resume. In other words, I don't want to put words in 617's mouth, but I think what 617 is saying is, instead of, which is fine, we want to have, financial criteria, economic criteria, health criteria, maybe it's time for us to have a 5-year immigration moratorium. For 5 years, we don't just seal the border and make sure no illegals come in. No immigration, period. Legal or illegal. That will give us, for 5 years, that will give us time to deport all of the illegals out of our country. And then furthermore, to figure out how many immigrants we actually have, because they're fudging the numbers when it comes to the census. And then ask ourselves and have a true, proper national debate. How many immigrants do we want? How much is good? How much is healthy? How much is too much? And should we restore the melting pot and assimilation instead of multiculturalism? And furthermore, what kind of immigrants, if we're going to have legal immigrants, what kind of immigrants do we want? And what I mean by that is, do we just want to continue to bring in low-skill, low-educated immigrants? Because we live now in a very different society than 60 years ago, never mind 100 or 150 years ago. Then it was an industrial age. So we needed workers in the factories. So if they had low skills or not much education, who cares? As long as they're willing to work and work hard. We now live in a very technologically modern society. We need high skills. It's a high-tech economy. We already have, whether you like it or not, automation is doing more and more of the physical labor that low-skill workers used to do. So do we really want to continue to import? I'm talking legal immigration. Forget the illegal, just legal. Do we want to continue to import people who have low skills, low education, manual laborers, when already our working class is not getting paid what they need to be paid because their wages are being undercut by foreigners who are coming in, whether it's illegal or legal? And increasingly, these jobs are being automated. Look, you look at many fast food restaurants now. It's increasingly automation. Amazon, I know they're firing a lot of white-collar workers because of AI, but also even, the people on the ground who are packaging and stuff because of automation. Now, what I'm saying is we have to have a debate. What kind of immigrants do we need? What kind of immigrants do we want? And I think the biggest debate, and this is what they've hijacked now for the last 30 years, does everybody have a right to come to America? Are we a country or are we an international charity? That's the question now. Do we have a right to decide the numbers that come in and what kind of immigrants and what is in the national interest of the United States? Now, personally, and I'm speaking now as a Christian, I do think we should have a certain number, 250,000, 200,000, 300,000. We can debate the numbers, but I would allow refugees to come in, a certain quota, people who are genuinely persecuted, who are genuinely being discriminated against or victims of genocide or mass murder or human rights abuses. Yes, I would say let's have a refugee program. But I'm not talking millions and millions and millions, and we don't vet them. They have to be vetted. We have to know they're genuine refugees, and even then that they're willing to contribute to America. So I do believe there is some humanitarianism we could have in our immigration policy. But that's a couple 100,000 a year. It's not, 5, 10, 15, 20 million. And I think overall, immigration should be determined by the national interest. Period. Full stop. And overall, we want immigrants that are here to be American, to assimilate, to be able to speak English. I don't care if it's with an accent. My mother spoke with an accent. People tease me. They say I have an accent, whatever. My point is they speak English. And they're here to be Americans, and they're here to give, to produce, and to contribute. And that's not what we have now. What we have now is the exact opposite. We have multiculturalism, where they're encouraged to keep their cultures from where they come from, to not assimilate, to speak their native language. It doesn't matter what it is, Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, whatever, and to hate this country. The moment they land, they're already being told how racist we are, and that we have to accommodate ourselves to them, and that in many ways, they go to the front of the line. They're the quote-unquote dreamers. They're smarter than us. They're better than us. They're more humanitarian than us. They're better people than us. That's what our elites keep telling us. That without these immigrants, we're nothing. Well, I disagree. To me, it's the opposite. Without America, these immigrants are nothing. Because if they stay in their third world countries, believe me, they don't have much of a future there. No matter how talented or smart or ambitious or hardworking they may be. And so to me, the goal of our immigration should be to strengthen America and make us a better, stronger country. We're not there to run a humanitarian Salvation Army operation for the world. Because I got news for everybody. And this is reality. If you import the world, you will bankrupt America. You import the third world, you become the third world. And that is the globalist project at its heart. It's the great replacement. And it's happening right in front of our eyes. Agree, disagree. Phil in Missouri. Thanks for holding, Phil, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Phil.
It feels like MAGA is dead or has been hijacked. I mean, Trump says he wants to double the amount of Chinese student visas coming in. And, those student visas, they come stapled with a work visa. And now he comes out with this silly thing about weight requirements. I mean, we just had a fight last week and found out 42 million Americans are on food stamps. How about a program where we retrain those people and put them into the jobs? Why do we have to bring somebody else in, to replace the American? And then anytime you criticize it now, oh, God, you get, ridiculed and shun out by the Republicans. Like, it's a litmus test now. You have to be pro-Ukraine war, pro-Israel, otherwise you're out. So I don't know. What do you say about that?
Well, let me ask you this. By the way, Phil, I'm against Trump's Chinese visa policies, his Chinese student visa policy. He wants to bring in 600,000 Chinese students on these student visas. He says it's good for the university system. It's good for the college system, that our universities need this constant infusion of foreign students, and that the Chinese are willing to pay for it, and they're willing to pay top dollar. I would keep a lot of these Chinese, in fact, all of these Chinese students out. I think many of them are ties to the CCP. I think we're just training them to go back eventually to destroy us. And I agree with you. What about all these American students that are coming out of college without a job? Why are we bringing in people, you're right, to train them to replace us? So I completely agree with you on that, 1,000%. And look, I think overall, he's got to focus more at home. I don't care about what happens between Russia and Ukraine. Israel won its war against Hamas and Iran. 617-266-6868 is the number. Mark in Lowell. Thanks for holding, Mark. And as always, welcome.
Hi. Hey, Jeff, I have a comment about the immigration thing. I think Trump is trolling right now with all that garbage that he's saying, even if it's dealing about fat people or no fat people or whatever. I think a solution for all this immigration stuff, I don't know about refugees yet, but for all other people, automatically anyone who receives a visa or a work permit or whatever they get, there's a 2-year moratorium on any government benefits. And what happens with that is all these people who are bringing their families in to have children and all that, it's not part of the government. They're still part of the group that they are part of, wherever government they come from or, country. And also all their illnesses and everything are covered. They have to take care of it. If they can't take care of it, then they're out or they get a no. There's no there's no chance for error because there's all gray area. And if you have gray area, then the only people who benefited from it is the immigration lawyers, because they're going to put everything into the court system saying this shouldn't have happened.
Well, what I find, Dan, I hear you, and this is what I just find incredible. I don't mean you, I don't mean this show. When I say Americans or we Americans, I'm talking in general, and especially our leaders. We think that somehow we're the only country in the world that has people come in and go to our colleges and universities. No. I mean, I hate to burst our leadership's bubble, but, Canadian universities get a lot of foreigners. Australian universities, a lot of foreigners. British universities, a ton of foreigners. German, French universities. So what do? Do they just allow anybody to come in? No. Do they allow them to come in and suddenly, get on the dole? Let's say they graduate right away. Absolutely not. Do they allow, let's say they, get married or bring a spouse with them and the spouse is pregnant. You think they give them automatic citizenship or the child automatic citizenship because the child happens to be born? Say they're from China and they go study in England, okay, Oxford or Cambridge, okay, world-renowned schools, or the London School of Economics. And, pop, out comes the baby while they're in Britain. You think it's automatic British citizenship for the child? No. We're the only ones that do this. And so that's why people come, and that's why people take advantage of us. Look, in fact, it's an open secret. And I'm not just talking about colleges and universities. You go down to Florida, go to anybody who works in a hospital in Florida, and they'll tell you whether it's Russian oligarchs, now increasingly, by the way, Ukrainian oligarchs, whether it's the Saudis, whether it's people from Qatar, these Gulf sheiks, they will come in and bring their wives or girlfriends, 8 months pregnant. I mean, they're about to pop. They land in Miami or wherever, Tampa Bay or Jacksonville. It doesn't matter. And they're, oh yeah, I'm here to go to Disney World. I love to go to Disney. And what they really do is they're here to put them up in a hospital and have the baby in Florida on American soil. Bang. Okay? It's birth tourism. Anchor baby, boom. The child has citizenship. By extension, then the child can sponsor the parents. Many of them literally land, have the baby, get the American citizenship for their kids, and then they fly back. They fly back to Russia or Ukraine, or they go fly back to Saudi Arabia or China. And then later, when the kid is like 10, 12, 14 years old, they go, okay, now we send you back to America and you sponsor us. And that's it. We have citizenship as well through the child. And by the way, all the welfare benefits that come with it. Never mind what the illegals do. I'm talking, this is more birth tourism. This is, they actually, they pay for flights, they pay for hotels. Some of them even pay for the cost of the hospital. But they just want that anchor baby. They want, once that anchor baby, once that thing pops out of the belly, bang, American citizen on the spot. They go back to their home countries and they'll take advantage of us for the rest of our lives. The illegals just cross the border, pop, out comes the baby. The baby's an American citizen. You have to give now government benefits to the baby and to the parents by extension. And of course, we don't divide families. So once the baby comes out, the parents stay no matter what. Now, they're making fools of us. No other country in the world does this. And it's for a reason. A, it's making a mockery of our sovereignty. We essentially have no borders. And it will bankrupt our welfare system. You keep doing this. It's a question of mathematics. Whether you have a heart, don't have a heart, you're compassionate, not compassionate, whether it's Christian, not Christian. No country can function like this. And they resort to the 14th Amendment. That's the one they always wrote about, the 14th Amendment. Look at the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment, people did not fight the Civil War for illegals to pour into our country and have anchor babies. On what planet are they living on? It's insane. The 14th Amendment was there to abolish, the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, but the 14th Amendment was to give citizenship to the former freed slaves. Hello? That's why Trump is challenging this birthright citizenship and taking it all the way to the Supreme Court. And he's got every right to do so because he says it's destroying us. I mean, we're basically defenseless. All you've got to do, I'm telling you, all you've got to do is get here and have a baby, and you're in the clear. And there was a recent poll. I mean, Mark, look it up. Don't take my word for it. 2 billion people say they want to come to America. 2 billion. 2 billion. You open the gates, they're going to come. Now, no country is rich enough. We can't even absorb 20 million. Never mind 200 million. Never mind 500 million. Forget about 1 billion or 2 billion. So what we're talking about now is a recipe for national suicide. And the last time I checked, the Constitution is not a suicide pact. Mark, final word to you.
I agree with all that part of it. And this is a good time to start to clean up the mess. And the mess starts with, there's no such thing as if a baby is born here, it's under your citizenship, not our citizenship. And if a visa is given out, it's not given out in the gray area. It's given out because of the rules that we already have in place. And the only one added thing: no government subsidies on any visa. And the visa should be limited time only anyhow, so that these people have to come back to get another visa.
Bingo. Mark, thank you very much for that call. Excellent call. Let me ask all of you, just to widen up the discussion, let me throw another log on the fire. do you think we should have, say, I'm just making a number up, a 5-year embargo, moratorium, however you want to call it, on all immigration, not just illegal, but legal immigration as well? Is it time for us, for a period of time, to close our borders so, A, we can get our house in order, we can deport all of these illegals, and then have a national discussion and a national debate about what our immigration policy should be going into the future? I'm just curious. Would you support something like this if Trump said, you know what, no more immigrants for 5 years, illegal or legal, we're just going to shut the borders down. We've got too many people already, too many illegals, and just too many non-citizens. And until we can sort all this out, I'm not going to bring in another person. Agree, disagree? Dan, hold on. Okay, we've got Grace on the line. All right, Dan in New Hampshire, hang on. Dr. Grace putting liberals in their place. Grace Voto, we finally got her. Full disclosure, she's my better half. She is my wife. Grace, how are you?
I am very well, Jeff. Great to be with you. Thank you.
So, Grace, I want to ask you, it's causing a lot of controversy. President Trump, his team, through the State Department, has now put out more guidelines, tougher criteria, not illegal immigration, but legal immigration. And if you want to get a visa to come into the United States, whether it's a travel visa, tourist visa, student visa, work visa, and you know I was on one for years, then we got a green card. So even for work visas and to get permanent residency, you have to show that you're financially able to take care of yourself. You're not going to be a burden to the taxpayers or to the state. But they also now want to weed out people who have cancer, who have respiratory diseases, people who may have severe mental illness. In other words, people who are going to cost a lot of money because they're going to be sick, they're going to have to be treated, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we just can't afford it. And one of the criteria is obese, fat people, overly obese people, that they will eventually develop heart issues, type 2 diabetes, and that this should be a factor in refusing entry into the United States. What say you?
Jeff, I think it's a terrible idea, and I'll tell you why. Consider for a moment who that we actually know, based on this criteria of obesity, would be denied entry. I mean, some of the hardest working people I know that were immigrants were, they would fall through the cracks. Think of somebody like my father who immigrated to Canada. He was a very stocky guy, such a proud, hard-working man. This guy never stopped working, even in his spare time. And everything that he contributed to society far outweighed anything that he took away from it. And think about somebody else that we know that died during COVID, Nicola, our landscaper. He was also an Italian immigrant into the United States, a very stocky guy. This was one of the best workers I've ever seen. This person would be denied. Think about my very best friend that I met in D.C., Angelica. And she has risen to the highest ranks of her profession as now the vice president of an arms company. And she was stocky. And then think about Jeff Kuhner, who entered this country.
Well, she's a little more than stocky, but let that go. Let that go.
And think of Jeff Kuhner, who you're actually slimmer now than when you entered. And I think you're a fantastic contributor to the society. But based on this criteria, all of these incredible workers would be denied entry. So this doesn't make sense to me. And also another thing to consider, Jeff, is that weight is a fluid category. So you might give entry to somebody who's skinny when they come in, but within 5 years they're overweight. Or somebody who is overweight when they come in, but within 5 years they're skinny. It's just a fluid category. So I don't think it's a category that is substantial enough as a criteria. So I think what we're doing is we're now gyrating from one extreme to the other extreme. So one extreme was the Democrats, who are complete idiots, opened up our borders with no criteria whatsoever, and also we have a society that gives an abundance of benefits, right? Just give everybody benefits and let everybody in. So this is the problem we have. And now we're going to go to the opposite extreme and create these categories that don't make sense. Look, the only thing we have to consider when we give somebody a visa, of course, their criminal background, obviously, are they criminals or not? And we just have to ask the key question. What does our economy need? And does this immigrant have the education and the skills to match what our economy needs, once you verify that they're not criminals? And I think we've got to keep it simple. Otherwise, you're empowering bureaucrats to make decisions about what a person can overall contribute based on a category that's not going to give you that information. And I just want to make one more point, Jeff, which is think about the people that are really overweight, say, that are American citizens, that have made a huge contribution, right? Think of someone like Rush Limbaugh, Orson Welles, Babe Ruth, Aretha Franklin, George Foreman, Marlon Brando, Elvis, who then became very, very overweight, Alfred Hitchcock, Oprah Winfrey. We got like big singers nowadays.
Well, Oprah. Oprah. I don't know if that bolsters your argument, but no, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
Weight, it's just not a valid criteria to determine the value that somebody's going to bring to the workforce.
What about, leave aside obesity and weight.
Yes.
If they have cancer, if if they have mental illness, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, if they have respiratory issues, if, whatever, there's all kinds of health issues. In other words, should we be allowing people to come into our country that, unless they can afford to pay for their own health care, it's inevitable. We are going to have to take care of these people, and it's going to cost us a lot of money. Should health be a consideration? I think it should. I don't think we should be, bringing in people with leukemia. I'm not trying to seem heartless, but, if you got a brain tumor, I'm like, yeah, you're going to be in our hospitals very soon. Well, we're not a charity for the world, but I'm just curious. What say you?
Well, look, I think it is already part of the screening that takes place. They have to make sure that incoming immigrants have proper vaccination. And I do think like a general health screening is a good idea. But one of the problems with trying to make this like a hard and fast criteria is that health too just fluctuates. And it's like you can't really predict the future. So unless obviously it's a terminal illness, right? Like something we know is terminal. But sometimes people are ill for a while. I mean, you just had a caller on that was ill for a while, and then she turned her health around, or vice versa. Someone that comes in healthy suddenly becomes very, very sick. So I just think right now we have to just keep the immigration process much, much simpler. Strict, but simple. That's the way to go. And look, we've done this before. The immigrants that we brought in for several decades were phenomenal. And we had a great system until the Democrats messed it up. I don't think we need to, reinvent the wheel on this one.
Grace, what do you think about a moratorium in general? We have too many immigrants already, illegal and legal. Too many non-citizens, many of them on food stamps, many of them public housing, many of them EBT and on welfare. It is literally bankrupting and bleeding our country dry. It is breaking the back of our welfare system. Is it time to impose a moratorium, an embargo on all immigration, not forever, not even for 20 years or 15 years or 10 years, but maybe for 5 years? So that way we can deport all the illegals, and B, start to ask ourselves as a country, do we want to have the melting pot? Do we want to sponsor and push assimilation? What kind of an immigration policy do we want? Because it seems to me, I think right now, 15% of the entire American population is foreign-born. Never in American history we've had so many foreign-born people in our country. And many of them are not learning English. Many of them are not assimilating. And all you've got to do is look at what happened in New York City with Mamdani. The foreign-born population put Mamdani over the top because they brought in so many. Do we now have too many immigrants, legal or illegal? And is it time for a moratorium so we can straighten all this out and devise an immigration policy that puts America and Americans first? What say you?
Definitely need to pump the brakes right now because we have to deal with the Democrats who have created a lawless society. That's really what they've created with this wide open border, and they've let just about anybody in, and then also it's give benefits to just about everybody. So these are the two huge problems that have to be addressed before we can even really have a properly functioning immigration system. But the problem we face is, yes, we'd like to do, let's say in an ideal world, right, we would tell President Trump, just stop every single immigrant from coming in, period, whether legal or illegal. One of the problems is that we have some huge categories of labor that we're in dire need for, like doctors, for example. We have a shortage of doctors in this country. So what do we do with that problem? So overall I would say yes, but you have to look very carefully at which industries would we also be blocking that we're in dire need of.
Grace, we've got a minute left. So let me just ask you this. Have we lost the melting pot? Have we lost the sense in America of assimilation, of Americanization, as it used to be called, that if you're forget illegal, if you're a legal immigrant, that you really have to learn English, you have to understand the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and truly become an American citizen, not just in name only, but truly, culturally, in your life, personally, that you come here to become an American. Have we lost that?
We have completely lost that, and you've got to consider that we're not only not teaching immigrants what it is to be an American, we're not teaching our own citizens what American history is, what the glories of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights are, what our revolution really, really stands for, its historic impact, how original it was in its time. We're not teaching the great books. We're not teaching the value of Western civilization. So we're seeing this rot. Never mind for the incoming immigrants who, of course, they won't know this if our own citizens don't even know this. And this is a deliberate plan by the left to take away our history so that we lose our uniqueness. Our history informs us as to what makes us unique in this world. And it is decades that they've been working hard
to destroy our identity. You're right. Our national identity, our national culture, our national unity, what binds us as a people and as a country. 617-266-6868 is the number. Lines are blazing. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Thanks for taking the call, Jeff. I appreciate it. Jeff, you blame people being heavy. You blame and blame and blame and blame and blame, but I want to put the blame on our government itself and the transformation of America. You just let 20 million people into our country because they're going to vote Democratic because they've been brought in by a Democrat and they've been given everything to support their votes. We've thrown away what we originally had when people used to go to I can't think of the island, but there was a special island.
Ellis Island.
Yeah, and Ellis Island, and they were processed, they were gone through, they had to assimilate, they couldn't be a burden onto our country, and they had to walk the walk, and if they didn't walk the walk, they were tossed out. Now, our country has let us down because they've want all the people in power, they want to enrich themselves, they want to stay in office for their whole entire lifetimes. They've distorted what this country actually stands for, and in the process, let everybody through the door just to continue the same situation that they can be in power and have control and not care about assimilation. You go into a market, that's all you can hear is people speaking foreign languages. It's hard to even believe that I'm in America because I hear so many foreign languages. But I'm going to put the blame on our government itself because we've basically stepped off We've not followed what's been successful for us. And Trump's trying to, take the wheel, as he says, maybe stop immigration. I say, let's cherry pick. Let's cherry pick the people that come in. Let's make sure that they're qualified and what they can do for this country instead of what we can give them for their vote. This country is worried about fat people. Let me tell you something. I'm fat, and I like it. It's my choice. I'm an American. If I want to eat, I eat. Quite honestly, I don't go on big vacations. I don't spend myself lavishly. My little things are going out to a nice restaurant or a nice bakery, and I eat what I want. I'm later in life, so let's face it. My drives and this and that are different because now that I'm older, I care a little bit more about food than physique. But I'll tell you right now, I'm happy in my skin. I think that heavy people, I look at it like this. I'm more interested with a person with a big brain than I am with a big gut. You know why? Because you can have both. I can be a heavy guy, but I can be as smart as hell, and I can be talented in many different ways. And let's face it, our country has put terrible food out on our plates. They've forced us to eat it. We're very, very technical now. The kids don't go out and play. They don't get to run around and do the things that we used to do. So we're responsible for being in the situation that we've put ourselves in. And now we're going to discriminate against fat people and this one and that one. No. They've tried to transform America. They didn't give a care about who they let in. They let in the junkies. They let in the criminals. They let in unqualified people, sick people, everyone. As long as you could vote, then you got in. So I say let's get back to basics. Let's have Ellis Island. Let's do what made us successful. If we want nationalism, we want patriotism, we want people to assimilate, and they've not done that for 20 or 30 years because our government has lost sight of it.
Bingo. Dan, absolutely bingo. Look, we've replaced the melting pot with multiculturalism, and we've replaced Americanization with multilingualism. And Dan, look, I completely agree with you when you talk about, you go to a store or you go anywhere now and you hear nothing but foreign languages. As I said yesterday, I'm talking dozens and dozens of languages I never even heard of. I mean, I know I understand Spanish. I understand Portuguese. I get, okay, that's an Asian language, but I'm telling you, they're talking languages now. I have no clue. So the question I have is what binds us together? What holds us together? If we don't even have a common language, then how do we have a common country? We don't have a common culture. We can't even communicate with each other. And, I don't want to pound the pulpit, but I got to say it. It's in the Bible. I mean, literally, we're talking, this is biblical, the Tower of Babel, where you had all these different languages, people speaking different languages, and they tried to build this tower to glorify God, and they ended up destroying each other, and it ended up destroying the tower. And the Bible is basically warning us, saying, no, you don't want this. God wanted different nations, different cultures, different peoples, different languages. But in France, they speak French. In Poland, it's Polish. In Japan, it's Japanese. In America, at least until recently, it was English. And so one of the things now, honestly, I think we need to do is not just restore the melting pot and assimilation, check. Not just now really crack down on the borders, check. And substantially reduce legal immigration, because I agree with you, we do want to bring in some of the most talented people if we can, but we've got to start focusing on what unites us and end this stuff with DEI and diversity and multiculturalism, because it is the road to ruin and disaster. And I'm sorry, it's time to make English an official language of the United States. It should be the official language in every state across the entire country. And we should be aggressively teaching English in the schools. So, I'm sorry. You got to learn English. You got to learn to read English. You got to learn to write English. This is the language of our nation. It's the language of our founding. It's the language that has sustained us for 400 years. Why are we abandoning it now? So let me throw this log on the fire. Not only should we have, I'm asking you, should we have a 5-year immigration moratorium? But should we make English the official language of the United States? Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends, I want to read to you a text message that I got from a really good dear friend of mine. And I think it sums up our entire discussion today on borders, language, culture, immigration, the national question, which to me is the question facing us as a country. And I think he absolutely hit the nail on the head. And this is what he wrote to me. And please, whatever you're doing, please stop. You need to hear this because this explains the last 30 to 40 years. You want to know how we got here? This is exactly how we got here. Jeff, as you know, I used to be a school teacher in the 1980s, high school. That was 40 years ago. Way back then, especially in the high school system where I taught, quote unquote, multiculturalism was already being indoctrinated into the students. The term sounds lovely and warm, with lots of ethnic food and dancing. But the core principles being taught were, 1, all cultures and all peoples are equal and interchangeable. That is very true. That is exactly what you get in school, elementary. Now it's, forget high school. Elementary, middle, high schools, universities, colleges, Hollywood, the media. It's relentless that all cultures and peoples are equal and they're interchangeable. 2, that these cultures need not and should not assimilate here in America, but rather operate under the same way of life that they had in their home countries in order to, quote unquote, enrich the new American experiment. And so multiculturalism should be celebrated. And 3, and of course you know this is huge now. This is, as they say, ubiquitous. It's pervasive. It's everywhere. That the United States as a nation was illegitimate from its outset and, quote unquote, stole the country from the Native American Indians and was built on the labor of slaves. After 3 years of that, the kids went off to college hating their own country. Now, I'm adding this part. Not only, and he's completely right, 1,000,000% correct. Okay, forget 1,000. Not only are they sent off to college hating their own country, but now you know why they're so receptive to Marxism and communism. Because communism is telling them what they think they already know, which is, well, your country is evil. At its very core, it's evil. So it needs to be overthrown. It needs to be replaced. We need a full revolution. And now they're completely open now to Marxist communist indoctrination and brainwashing. And then you have PBS, which reinforces it. NPR reinforces it. CNN reinforces it. MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, all the major networks, they just keep reinforcing this over and over and over and over again. Now, let me ask all of you this, okay? This may be a tad premature because Thanksgiving is still a little bit away, but still, I want to ask all of you this. When I ask you, as you're listening at home, in your car, at work, wherever you're listening to me, on podcast, wherever, what is American culture? If I was to say to you, look, you're at sea, you're on a ship, you're with other foreigners, and they say, whatever your name is, I'm just going to make up a name, John, Jennifer, whatever. Can you explain to us, what is American culture? What is it? What does it mean to be an American? What does American culture consist of? What would you say? What's your answer? What does it mean to be an American? Truly be an American. And if you notice, over the last 40 years, they have tried to drain the content of what it means to be an American. They're deliberately diluting American culture on purpose and what it means to be an American and our cultural identity. This is done deliberately. And so when you ask someone, what does it mean to be an American? Increasingly, people are saying, I don't know. Really, no. What does it mean to be an American? Do we have a national food? Do we have a shared history? Do we have actual real traditions that we all, as Americans, honor and commemorate and respect and adhere to? Do we have a definition of what it means to be an American? Now, I've never heard of this woman. I've never heard of this woman. I don't care to know about this woman. But this is a story that it really stood out for me. And it's a big deal in the media. I never heard of this woman anyway. So some of you may know her. I'm confessing to you, I have no idea who she is. But this is exactly now what I'm talking about. CBS is now giving a cooking show, and apparently it's a big deal, to this host. She's a model, a former model. She's from India. Her name is Padma, and if I'm mispronouncing her name, forgive me, Lakshmi, I think is how you pronounce it, Lakshmi. Okay, there you go. So Sandy knows her very well. She was a huge host on Bravo, and apparently she was the former wife of Salman Rushdie. So apparently she's a big deal. I never heard of her. She's a huge cookbook author. Now you anticipate exactly what I'm going here, Sandy. So apparently she's a huge cookbook author, and now she's going to get her own show on CBS. So Padma Lakshmi. Now, she did an interview on CBS because now they're plugging her new show. She's got a new cooking book out. Now, I want to stress this. I have nothing against her. I'm sure she's probably a nice woman in private. Nothing against her personally. But her mother and her arrived in this country 50 years ago. She's now 55 years old. She came at the age of 5. So they left India when she was 5 years old. She's a naturalized American citizen. She came here at the age of 5. According to her, because now they're talking, Thanksgiving, and what are you going to be cooking for Thanksgiving? And they're plugging her show, blah, blah, blah. And she says, listen to this, that apple pie is not American. You know the expression, as American as apple pie? No. She goes on about that Americans have no culture. That the only culture we have is what is brought to us by, quote unquote, immigrants and migrants. And according to her, in an interview that she gave to the New York Times, and they wrote it down word for word, she said, quote, apple pie isn't American. Not the crust, not the filling, not the spices. And so she goes on to say that even everything that Americans love, say for Thanksgiving, such as turkey, corn, cranberries, even blueberries, you name it, that this was all given to us by immigrants or migrants. And listen how condescending she is. She says, the only really American food, this is what she says, is that if we just ate what was native to the United States, we'd be living on desert pack rat and ramps. And she's referring to these rodents that live in the desert. And wild garlic. That's it. According to her, that's all. That's our native cuisine. That's a very good point, Sandy. Are Native Americans upset about this? You're completely right. I mean, she's ignorant. There's no question. You're right. She's completely ignorant. But my point is, this is her attitude. Now, she even says, I just want to add, this is a further problem when you have multiculturalism. Now, by the way, she's phenomenally wealthy. She's done extremely well for herself. And she admits it. She even says, oh no, America's been very good to me. So they say, well, do you love America? And this is what she said, quote, well, I love this country for what it gave me and my mom. In other words, like it's transactional. Well, it scratched my back. It put money in my pocket. So, yeah, I'm going to scratch its back. Now, here's what she wrote. If you take away, this is what she told the New York Times, forgive me, this is what they wrote. If you take away the immigrants, our country, the entire food system, high tech, the tech arena, Wall Street, medicine, everything, it will all come to a standstill. In other words, without migrants, there is no American culture. Okay, look, we're going to talk about this some more as we get closer to Thanksgiving, but just because I want to go to the phones, but just super, super quick. Apple pie was introduced in the 1600s in the United States, in the colonies. It's from England, originally from England. And we perfected it. We did. We perfected it. Even the English admit we perfected it. By the way, just so that people know, pasta, which is, you want to talk about a national, right, food for the Italians. Right, it's pasta. What, you think they invented pasta? Just to show you how stupid that Padma Lakshmi, whatever she is. No, pasta was brought from China by Marco Polo back to Italy. And then the Italians perfected it. And they adopted it and said, no, now it's our national cuisine. It's our national food. So what I'm saying is, just because something isn't, quote, native to your country doesn't mean it's not your national food. Now, furthermore, so that's, point number one. Moreover, and Sandy's on fire back there because I think she liked Padma. She calls her Padma, by the way, on a first name basis. She used to watch her. According to Sandy, she says she's drop dead gorgeous. I'm just telling you what Sandy's telling me. And she's a great host, and she can't believe she's saying this. And she thinks this is going to ruin Padma's career, and I think she's right. But anyway, as Sandy said, the turkey is native to the United States. In fact, it's so native that Ben Franklin wanted the national bird or whatever to be the turkey and not the American eagle. So turkeys are indigenous to America. This woman doesn't know what she's talking about. Corn. What do you think? The Native American Indians, what, they didn't grow corn? What are you, nuts? They didn't do hunting and fishing. And so much of the foods that we eat on Thanksgiving are indigenous to the United States. A. B, apple pie, we perfected it over 400 years. But my point is, under multiculturalism, look at how they denigrate the country that's been so good to them. Look how little they think of us. And she came here at 5. She's 55 years old now. And I'm sorry, but I got to say this. I'm sorry, I have to say it. You think you would be successful in India the way you are here in America? With the caste system that they have in India? It's a third world country with mass poverty and particularly discrimination against women, which is rampant. You think that you would have a cooking show, a successful modeling career, a successful TV career, and be a multi-millionaire with a national audience and your own national TV show in India? In your dreams. In your dreams. And this is how you pay us back? This is your gratitude? That's what multiculturalism does. It divides. It polarizes. It's fundamentally and anti-American. And I got final word. To Padma, if India is so much better, and they have all this culture and all this tradition and they have all this beauty and we don't. We're just a bunch of culturalist barbarians. Hey, no problem. Go back to India. It's okay. We'll survive without you. If you don't like it here, leave. And that's one saying that used to be very prominent in the 70s. I want to revive. America, love it or leave it. John in Saugus. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome. John? Okay, I think we lost John. Maestro Mike, where do you want me to go to next, my friend? Sergio in Marlboro. Thanks for holding, Sergio, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Sergio?
I'm very well, sir. Two quick points. One, I was going to mention the pasta coming from China. I was going to mention that. Two, I'm going to get to a point about illegal immigration. Two, my parents were Italian immigrants in the late 50s. Very proud of what they did. They had to be sponsored to come to the United States, and they assimilated. And they did very well for themselves. My real point is about illegal immigration, which I never hear anybody talking about. And because I was entrenched in the Brazilian community in Framingham for a lot of years, and I knew a lot of Brazilians, everybody I knew flew over on a visa and just overstayed the visas. They didn't come over the border.
Oh, that's a great point. Sergio, that's a great point. Keep going, Sergio, please.
They came over on a plane, on a visa, and just overstayed the visa. And nobody ever talks about that.
Sergio, do you think it's time for a moratorium, 5 years, 3 years, whatever it may be on immigration? Quick, we're running out of time. What do you think?
I'm not against that. I haven't thought about it, but I'm certainly not against it.
Yeah, I think we're going to need something like it. As Grace put it, we're going to have to pump the brakes. And look, I'm an immigrant to this country. My wife is Italian, and I know how Italians are some of the best immigrants in the entire world. Honestly, everywhere they've gone, I don't care. America, Canada, Argentina, Australia, Britain, they enrich.